I think this is such a shattering moment for the Queen, for the royal family, really for Britain. And this chap was always there, always beside her since 1952 as her consort and as her husband since 1947. There you see the family, the nine in the procession leading off with Prince Charles and Princess Anne at the head of the procession, Prince Andrew, Prince Edward, the four bereaved children, and then William, Harry and Peter Phillips, the eldest grandson, then Viscount Snowdon behind, who's Princess Margaret's son.
Wesley,
this is
it's also interesting,
such a powerful
Wesley,
thing.
it's interesting that Princess Anne is in the procession, because normally it's an all male procession, I'm told.
Yes, Princess Anne always likes to be treated, as it were, as a boy. She's in the Order of the Garter. She's a Knight of the Garter rather than a Lady of the Garter. So she would have insisted on breaking with royal tradition that she should be, as the oldest daughter, as this beloved second child of Prince Philip. They were incredibly close. Of course, she would have insisted on being there with her brother Charles. She wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I mean, and of course, this is where there's so much of their lives, Philip and Elizabeth, have been spent. The upper ward, this is where the private quarters were. We're not far away from where Philip died. He died overlooking the gardens that he designed in the huge great park that he was ranger of for 70 years. So during the Second World War, when Elizabeth was here, away from the Nazi bombs, the gun salute has just begun. I can hear that in the distance. During the Second World War, there were pantomimes at Christmas, and Philip would come back on the leave from his incredible service across the world in the Navy and would see her in the pantomime. So that might be where the love blossomed. But so much of their life, so much of Britain's life is entwined in this magical place. The Queen is the 41st monarch to have Windsor Castle available to her since it was built in 1070. It's the House of Windsor. So this is where he would want this to happen. This is where his own mother was born here in 1885 in the presence of Queen Victoria. His grandmother was born here in 1863, also in the presence of Queen Victoria. There you see Her Majesty's Royal Standard over the Round Tower. First, that was started in 1070. This was like a Norman keep. It was a fortified place. So this is, as it were, almost the birthplace of the British monarchy in terms, again, I hear another of the gun salute going off. It's such a powerful event.
No,
I know this
Wesley, it is such
so
a powerful picture. We have to say about Wesley Kerr, he has the knowledge of many encyclopedias, and so we will go back to you, Wesley Kerr, a little bit later on. I really appreciate you being here this morning. Right now, we're going to go back to Charlie Daggett, who's outside Windsor Castle. You know, Charlie, for the first time, we saw William and Harry and their cousin Peter Phillips in the middle. For many people, this is the first time they've seen Harry in over a year. What do you think the significance of that is? You know, listen, a lot has been made about what's going on between William and Harry, but at the end of the day, this is a family who is grieving, and I would suspect that all the family differences would be set aside on this particular day.
Well, the Archbishop of Canterbury said funerals have a way of pulling a family together. He wouldn't comment much more on that, but you're right. It's an image that many here were waiting for. Certainly there's a lot of interest in the United States, just as we watch Prince William and Prince Harry nearly side by side, but certainly in line. And, you know, they are joined in unity and grief, in respect for their grandfather, in their fondness for their grandfather. And it's worth noting, too, that there's already been some level of coordination. You know, they both released statements about the passing of Prince Philip, and they did it within a half hour of each other, Prince William first and Prince Harry after that, both with their own sentiment as to what Prince Philip meant to the family as a patriarch, what he meant as a grandfather and a great-grandfather to William's children. So, you know, there is a sense of belongingness there. Harry, as you already noted, he's been in quarantine, so he hasn't really had a lot of time. We don't know, and we can't confirm whether he's even had much time to confer with Prince William or Prince Harry, or excuse me, Prince Charles, for that matter, because he has been in quarantine. But yes, as you heard, the guns are ringing out. We can hear that too. This huge military presence on both sides. Royal Navy, Royal Marines, Highlanders, the Royal Air Force, ceremonial bodyguards, military Knights of Windsor are all lining this journey, this 8-minute procession to St. George's Chapel.
You know, Charlie, I was reading that the public was asked to stay away from Windsor Castle today, to not even gather outside the walls. Did people show up this morning? Did they pay attention? I also heard that the public was told, please don't bring flowers, and we saw that they ignored that. I think it's people's small way of paying tribute to a man who was greatly respected by the public there.
Well, I think that's right, Gail. Certainly by normal standards, I've covered enough of these events, funerals and weddings, that this place would be absolutely heaving. You've been here too. You know what the streets of Windsor can be like. Largely, the crowds have stayed away. It hasn't stopped everybody. There is a media circus here, another gun going off there. And we have seen throughout the week, people have been laying flowers. And the police haven't been very heavy-handed about it, because what we've seen is small groups arriving. They just stay for a few moments. They don't congregate, and that's what police are saying. Please don't congregate. They pay their respects, usually in silence, lay some flowers, and walk off. But the police and the mayor have been saying, stay away, not just from here, but from Buckingham Palace. They don't want people congregating because of the COVID restrictions. Largely, they've been paying attention to it. But my own family themselves, they're saying, we'd love to come to Windsor. We want to show and pay our respects. So there is that sense. This is a big deal. He was a beloved figure. Everybody knows what he meant to the Queen, and they want to take part in that grieving.
Yes, Charlie, we're looking now at the Queen. She has stepped out of the Bentley, and she's going into St. George's Chapel. You know, Tina, it's interesting. This is the first time many people are seeing her following the death of her husband. And we know that she will have to sit alone in the chapel. There's something, I know that it's all part of COVID protocols, but the fact that you're thinking she's lost her husband of, 73 years, she's going in to pay final respects, and that she has to sit alone, Tina, during the service.
Yes, I find it very poignant the way the whole thing has worked out, quite honestly. There's the Queen going to be sitting alone, mourning this man who has been her strength and stay, as she said, her rock all the way through her life. And at the same time, William and Harry have to have, their cousin between them. There's animus there. And then there's also the embarrassment that none of them can wear military uniform in the family because of...
Is it an embarrassment?
Well, it is. It's an embarrassment in the sense that it's something that Philip would have very much wanted. This was for him a very much a military occasion, and for sure he would have expected and wanted the men of the family to be in their military regalia. And it hasn't happened because Prince Andrew has had all of the difficulties and embarrassment about and disgrace over the Jeffrey Epstein affair, and he wanted to wear...
Yeah, I was reading he wanted to wear an admiral's...
Yes. With typical tone deafness, he wanted to wear an admiral's uniform, even though actually he's not even an admiral by rank. Mm-hmm. And of course, there's the difficulty of Harry, who did serve so bravely in Afghanistan.
Harry has often said that his time in the military was some of the happiest of his life.
Absolutely.
Because he was treated like everyone else.
Absolutely.
And he took his service very seriously.
Yeah.
As you point out, Andrew hasn't served.
No, Andrew has served, and actually, as a matter of fact, the two who have served are Andrew and Harry, and yet they couldn't wear their uniforms for these other reasons that we're discussing. So that's sort of ironic and sad, and actually Prince Philip was enormously proud of Harry having served his country as he did.
Let's bring in Holly Williams again. Holly, can you elaborate on Prince Philip's service to the nation? We know that it was very important to him.
Yeah, I'm just looking now at these pictures, Gail, and that's, I believe, so we're about to see the coffin carried up the steps into St. George's Chapel, and we're going to hear from the Royal Navy Piping Party, who will play two pieces of music, the still and the side. They're both very closely associated with the Royal Navy, in which Prince Philip famously served. He was a war hero. When we think about the younger members of the royal family, we often think about their glamour and their celebrity. More recently, in some cases, there's scandals and they're kind of famously fractious relationships. But Philip was really from an older generation. He was famously no fuss, as we've heard time and time again in the British media since his passing. And he really seemed to think that it wasn't really about him as an individual. It was about serving the institution and I suppose more broadly serving British society. In his lifetime, he was associated with more than 900 organizations and charities in this country, either as president or patron or honorary member. And I just want to give you a flavor of some of those associations, because it's pretty extraordinary. Yacht clubs, car clubs, camera clubs, flying clubs, hospitals, medical research charities, the All England Lawn Tennis and Croquet Club. He was involved with the Anglo-Finnish Association, a boxing association, the Association of Jewish ex-servicemen and women, the British Dragon Association, which I learned this morning has nothing to do with dragons, and even the British Dental Association. So his interests and duties were very wide. He clearly was a man who wanted to give back to what was, after all, his adopted country. He wasn't born in this country, he wasn't born a British citizen, but he served this country in the armed forces, and then he served this country as consort to the Queen for nearly 7 decades. He made a joke towards the end of his public life, saying that he was the world's most famous, or most experienced plaque unveiler. And when you boil it down, away from the glamour and away from the celebrity, that really is the job of the royal family in this country, or at least it's the job that the British public wants them to do. They want them to visit schools. They want them to open hospitals. They want them to do those kind of mundane duties that really are the job of the royal family.
Can you talk to, Holly, we're at Windsor Castle heading into St. George's Chapel, and I remember when we were there covering the wedding how we were told this was always the Queen's favorite place, Windsor Castle. Can you talk about the significance of Windsor Castle and St. George's Chapel to Prince Philip?
Well, it's obviously hugely significant to the Queen and Prince Philip. It's just one of her homes. The Queen and the royal family have extraordinary homes all over this country. It's a very short distance from London, and my understanding is that this was really the weekend home of the Queen and Prince Philip. When they left behind their duties in London, when they were in residence at Buckingham Palace, they would come out here, and that they would spend part of the year here, I think in spring, I understand, living here. Mm-hmm. Also, it's where they both spent much of the pandemic living under lockdown.
Yes. You know, I think, Tina, that Princess Anne summed it up best for the family at one point when she said, you know it's going to happen, his death, but you are never really ready when it comes. He died at 99 after being in the hospital and had been released from the hospital, and people thought, well, he's rallied a bit. But at the end, he died quietly and at home, surrounded by family members.
Yeah, he wanted to get out of that hospital so badly. He was there a long time. I think it was over a month.
Over a month, yes.
And he was determined to die in his own home. He knew that this was coming, and he wanted to do that at home. And he sat with a rug over his knees in the sunlight when he got home, so grateful to be there. And he and the Queen went through memorabilia, talked, laughed. She really sat with him all of that time. And it's a wonderful thing that she actually got the chance to do that, because the Queen is so unbelievably dutiful that had she had a full calendar, which she would have had but for COVID, she would have still been following those duties. But because of this unique situation of lockdown, she really was able to be with him until the very end, and she was with him when he died.
And everybody says that this is a service he would have wanted. COVID or no COVID, he would have wanted something very small. But it's interesting to keep calling this small, but it is small under normal circumstances of what would have been, that he would have wanted something small and scaled back, that this was the person he was.